Hi everyone, this is George at Superior Ink Printing. Today we're going to be going over our first rendition of Coffee and Clothing with our owner Dominic Rosacci and Diggin' Dave. A little bit of tips on building an apparel brand. I really hope that you enjoy it.
Alright, what's up, D?
What's up, man? Good morning.
Good morning. This is our first little stab at Coffee and Clothing.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers to that. Here we go.
So, I've known David for like probably 10 years, and he's always had an interesting story. How'd you get into streetwear?
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, I was at a point in my creative career where I was making a transition from 2D posters and was getting lots of suggestions to make shirts. So, yeah, 10 years ago, I was recommended you. That's how we first met. What started streetwear? You know, just artistic influence and wanting to reach a broader mass of people. 2D art is only appealing to a certain amount of people, but I think that t-shirts reach almost everybody because everybody wears t-shirts. Just the accessibility of putting your art on a shirt and being able to give it to anybody was what led me to liking fashion.
Okay, so David started a brand called Plant, and that was the first kind of segue into our relationship. And what I really wanted to talk about was the whole process and the evolution of creating Plant, which like you come as an artist, not necessarily a clothing designer. So you're putting all of your archives of art and building it into this brand. And what I remember the most is like the struggle of producing stuff, dealing with like producing high volumes and understanding like our process and what we needed to get a reasonable price to then go to retail. And I also remember like the immense struggle that you had of hitting up all these retailers and like building a relationship to where they could sell it in their stores and kind of the balance of does it make sense for margins and kind of that struggle. So that was my biggest like look into the retail side and the clothing side, because I could actually like see where you were coming from and then have an understanding of the manufacturing side and what the variables and drawbacks are. So do you have anything to like add to that in terms of the difficulty of being a clothing brand?
Yeah, oh yeah. It was definitely a trial by fire experience. It was purely just ideas, a lot like how a lot of these, young kids still want to form brand. They're influenced by another, and then the next day they want to build a brand without having knowledge on marketing, pushing that to stores, manufacturing, margins, all that. It's just purely off of I want to start a brand. I would definitely advise anyone starting a brand to just be a utility knife of skill. You have to be a people person, an artistic individual, an outgoing entrepreneur, a techie, to really grasp how the entire brand works. Then be able to maneuver the ever-changing social networks. Because what's weird is 10 years ago, Instagram was like, it was either it wasn't around or it was just popping off. And yeah, the whole cold calling stores, that's how you would push your brand, asking if they want to place a big order. And that has kind of not disappeared, but that's just like, it's not how brands are going about it these days. They're so big with their social media followings that they don't need to be in a store. They have stores coming to them after being noticed.
Is that kind of what you noticed from the transition from Plant to Station Denver? Because what I thought was interesting through that is I remember you struggling and me feeling like I was struggling too, to like, this is a sick brand and it's just not getting that momentum. And then fast forward to now you're running a shop in Denver and you're the guy that's like the gatekeeper of all these new brands that are trying to get into your store. Is that weird to you?
So going back to the being a utility knife of skill, yeah, like cold calling to stores to stock my brand that you would print. Yeah, like, oh man, I'd hear, a few of them opened their doors, but very few, but a lot of times you get the runaround. I'll call you back later, no reply. And it literally took several more years of me trial and erring and then flipping it to being the shop owner, to having people then come to me and present their brands, and then yes, being like, okay, it's about, just being on the other end of the spectrum, having somebody present their brand to you says a lot about them, their brand, their drive. Brands that would come in to our store and physically hand me the lookbook have some examples. That said a lot more than the brands that would just shoot me a DM or, call the store. And that led me to thinking back about my journey and how I went about that in my brand. And it all just it all fit together in learning the bigger picture and how to present your brand to the world.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today for our first rendition of Coffee and Clothing. Appreciate you so much, and thank you. Be on the lookout for part 2 of this webisode. Skirt.